Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. Yes, we can talk about our live trials all day, and we will. But right now, we have a very special update, and we want to talk to you about it right now. As you know, there's an ongoing lawsuit between CNN and Jim Acosta against President Trump and some of his aides regarding a November 7th press conference that didn't go so smoothly as the Trump administration would have liked, and it was a whole question about whether or not Jim Acosta's press pass should have been revoked or not. And we are going to play some of that sound and a little bit of what happened at that press conference, but we wanted to get a different perspective. And who better than former longtime host on CNN and the current host of Larry King Now on Aura TV? What a privilege, what an honor to introduce Larry King.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm honored to be here. I've been on a lot of shows. I've never been on a show called Law and Crime.
It's a little bit on the nose, but you get what we know.
Which side am I? Do I represent crime?
It's whatever you want. Do you want to represent?
I'll speak on behalf of crime.
Okay, so let's just talk about this. Do you think it was appropriate for the Trump administration to revoke Acosta's pass?
There's interesting questions back and forth on this. I was interested to know that Bob Woodward thinks the White House is correct. Others, there's a division of opinion. I'm not a lawyer. Freedom of speech, I'm a big supporter of freedom of speech. But on the other hand, there are 50 press passes at CNN to the White House. So do they have the right? The White House is our house. Trump is using it, but he rents it from us. We give him the right, the privilege to use it. He's our employee, right? Do we know? You know that,
right?
Trump works for us.
So
since he works for us, then he should, of course I'll stand with Acosta and CNN and Fox. Even Fox is in on it.
What did you think about Fox siding with CNN on that?
Well, I think the legal people at Fox were smart, because you could have another president in 3 years who throws a Fox reporter out.
That's a good point, and I want to get your perspective. We have the tape, and I want to just show it one more time.
Yeah, let's see it.
Let's see the tape, and let's talk about what happened. So if we could play that right now, let's see.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
Well, if you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me
that. Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election to try to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, you know, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I have one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation? Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his
butt.
Well, I'm
not a big fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, no. when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said Democrats would unleash a wave of violent crime that endangers families everywhere. Why are you
Because they're
pitting
very weak on
Americans?
crime.
Why are
Excuse
you
me.
pitting Americans
Peter.
against one another, sir?
Peter, what are you trying to be him?
No, I'm
Peter,
just asking.
Okay, let's talk about this right now. So the argument in favor of the Trump administration is they said, well, look, he hijacked the press conference. He wouldn't give up the microphone. Trump answered his questions, wouldn't relinquish it. And then when someone tried to take the microphone away, he moved her aside. I'm curious your perspective after seeing that video.
Jim was a little out of line. I wouldn't have gone that far. He answered one or two questions, then he didn't want to answer anymore. You got a room full of people, all of whom have the right to ask questions. Jim might have gone a little too far. The president kept going back to him, referring, you could run CNN, who should run CNN? To me, you know what this was? 8th grade. It was the playground. It's my ball, and I want to play today in the team. It was childish.
It's unfortunate that we see that.
And now the court is supposed to decide today, right?
That's right. In fact, we were waiting to see what the court will ultimately decide because they can decide whether or not there's going to be a TRO, a temporary restraining order, or a permanent injunction, in order to get his pass back in the interim while they decide the issues of constitutional law. My question is though, what is the role of a journalist? You know, Jim
They ask
Acosta.
good questions.
But should they become the star of the story?
No.
No.
I've been in the business 61 years, and I always felt that the guest was the star. The person you're asking the question of is, for want of a better term, is the star. At a Trump press conference, Trump is the star. You try to learn as much as you can from him, but you're not bigger than him. It isn't about you. It's about him. So it's a thin line. It's going to be a tough decision. You think it'll go to the Supreme Court?
I think it's going to get resolved much quicker than that. I really do. I think this was more of a statement for the week, and sometimes what we see in this day and age is there's a story that takes the news by a week, 2 weeks, and we're not talking about it again after. I mean, how many people are still talking about Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford? It became something of a month and a half ago. It was in our public consciousness, and now everybody's talking about something else. I keep seeing that as the news cycle. Do you see something different?
No, the terrible part to me is, after all those years at CNN and now CNN has become, as is Fox and MSNBC, Trump networks. There's the anti-Trump network, the partially anti-Trump network, and the pro-Trump network. But they're not news networks. They're not news networks.
You had mentioned that. You said CNN stopped doing news a long time ago.
Yeah, they do pundits. A typical CNN show is 8 guests. He had opinion, he has opinion, he has opinion. Like, I was watching one day and there was terrible storms in the east. It wasn't a hurricane, but there's really bad weather in the east. Roads were clogged. And I had to wait till CBS News at 6:30 to see that story.
Yeah.
So they stopped doing news.
The argument to that would be, look, it's a ratings game, right? Who can get the most ratings? So if they're getting a lot of ratings by focusing on Trump, what do you think about that?
A news organization is supposed to lead or follow. What is it? My definition is a news organization leads.
That's what I would hope for as well.
I've always worked under that premise, that a news organization leads the news, doesn't follow the news. To me, Jackie Gleason used to say, if you put, let's be honest, if you put couples in prime time having sex, you will win the night.
Fortunately, you're right.
You will win the night.
So what do you hope for? I mean, have you ever seen something quite like this?
I hope for something better than what is now a zoo.
What do you think the solution is? Because it's really a divided time, and it's ugly.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be 85 on Monday.
Can't tell. You look great.
I've been around this a long time, and I've never seen anything. I know Donald 40 years, and this Donald is a Donald I don't know. I know him 40 years. I've been on many social occasions with him. He's very nice to me. I've been to his hotels, I've had dinner with him. When I had a surgical procedure in New York, he took my wife and her friend out to dinner the night before. He's always very kind to me, giving, And when I knew him, he was a Hillary Clinton supporter, major supporter when she was in the Senate. I would have called him a moderate Republican, you know, who he was in favor of single-payer health. He said, makes sense. We all pay in what you can afford, and everybody has health. What's wrong with that? You know, his answers. But now he's playing to the base. It's a different. Donald Trump is against abortion. You believe that?
There's a lot that I can't believe. I've known Donald Trump. I met him before. My father had done business with him back in the day. I met him. He was right at the height of The Apprentice. I was starstruck. It's a very different situation. I'm curious, though, do you think he looks at this and says, I'm surprised by what I'm confined to do as the president? I think did he have a notion of what the president can and cannot do, and then he gets into office and he's surprised by that?
I don't think he had it. I don't think he was a student of history. When he said he wanted to meet some of the veterans of World War I, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Since they're all dead. I don't know if Donald Trump would know the history of World War I, when it started, when it ended, why it was fought. You know what he's not? He's not curious.
And you need to be curious.
And one of the first elements of any kind of leadership quality is curiosity. Why are things done the way they're done? And I don't think Donald uses the word why a lot. Good leaders should use it a lot.
Do you think, though, just on the opposite side, that there needs to be more, no matter who the president is, you respect the office, maybe not the person who holds the office, but you respect the office. Do you think that there has been a degrading of that respect since he's taken office?
Yes, absolutely.
And what do you think about that?
Well, because what came first, the chicken or the egg? When you're being called fake news and they lying, do you expect the press to just sit back and... So who started that? I've been in it 61 years, as I said, Jesse. I've never seen fake news. No, I've never seen two reporters at CNN get together and say, let's tell this story. I never saw that. Never saw it. Never saw anyone say, I'm going to lie. I never saw it. So if it exists, it's new to me.
What do you hope to do now when you're reporting the news?
I just ask good questions. I try to ask good questions and elicit good answers. The number one thing in interviewing is listening. You have to listen, and then you have to be able to respond to what they've said. Take it all in. It's so wonderful. It beats work. The reporter has a great job. Jim Acosta has a great job, and Parshi's probably loving this.
Probably.
He's like weathermen love hurricanes. I don't care what they tell you. They love hurricanes. They're on in prime time.
It's their time to shine.
That's it.
More tornadoes, more screen time.
Hey, here they come, baby. They don't want people to die, but they like to broadcast the fear. It's part of the nature of the beast.
Mr. King, I got to tell you, this was a pleasure to have you on here. I've been following you for quite some time, and really, I never thought I'd have the opportunity to speak to you, let alone interview you, so this has really been amazing.
I must say, Jesse, how thrilled you must be.
You
probably can't wait to go home and say, you know who I was with today.
You think I already told people. This is a big moment in my life. Do you feel it?
Great meeting you, Jesse.
Thank you so much.
You're
we really
terrific.
appreciate
You
it.
got a future in this business.
That means a lot. Thank you so much.
You're going to hang around Abrams, though? How long?
He's the best, of course.
Oh, he's the best.
He's the best.
But don't get caught up in the web of Abrams, where you become Junior Abrams. Get on
if I have to follow some footsteps, those are good footsteps to follow.
Good footsteps.
All right, everybody, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk more about our live trials, but when we come back, there is so much more to discuss. So stay tuned here on Law and Crime.